talk about pickups. This is a set I kind of made up for myself. And it's kind of special. I took a whole bunch of coils apart, measured them all, got backing plates, and then assembled two purposely oddball pickups. So this guy is 8.6K, the neck pickup, very, very overwound, but the coils have a fairly wide offset in value. All the metals are vintage PAF type metals. And then the bridge pickup, same deal, wide offset. And very low wind, like 7.2K. So very almost Telecaster-like, quite nasal. But together they're very interesting. Anyway, I wanted to try this ever since I saw that some bursts had very hot wound neck pickups and then cleaner, less wound bridge pickups. And I always wanted to try this little trick of sort of basically reversing them and making the calibrated for the bridge one for the neck and vice versa. The out of phase sounds great. It's not really out of phase, but you know what I mean. 8.6. Real bumblebee. You notice the lightweight bridge pickup gives you very in the middle position, Albert King. The neck pickup. Bridge pickup. Middle. This is actually a really good sounding pickup. But if you follow along with the PAF legend, there's a big no-no here. And that is this bottom plate is brass. In the middle of the pandemic, I realized that I should do a little more research into PAF materials. For the past 20 years, I've been talking to boutique pickup builders, and from Tom Holmes to Wade to my friend Peter, who built me a lot of prototypes over the years, you hear from these guys that the metals are as important or more important than the winding. And then last year, Mr. Gundry at Throwback made a set of Kossoff pickups. And a couple of my friends ordered them and asked to have me put them in the guitar and give them my opinion or evaluation. And those pickups blew my mind. And the interesting thing about the Kossoff pickup is that it is actually the bridge pickup, which is the one that sounds really crazy, is a rewind, partial rewind. One of the coils was done in, and Sam Lee, I believe is the name of the technician, rewound one of the coils using a record player using Fender magnet wire. So right there, a whole bunch of things are quote-unquote wrong with this great sounding PAF pickup. And that inspired me to get off my butt and start cruising around the internet and seeing what materials were available. First thing I stumbled across was Mojotone making base plates, standard nickel silver Gibson spec base plates. They're maybe $4. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if I disassembled this pickup and reassembled it on a proper nickel silver base plate. And just for the record, Paul Reed Smith did use nickel silver base plates in the early days. I have an HFS here, Hot Fat Screams, that sounds incredible, and it's had a few changes. They were originally a ceramic pickup, and I put a Alnico Magnet in it, and that brought it into the ballpark I wanted. But anyway, that pickup sounds great. So I have a bunch of these because I have a bunch of Paul Reed Smiths that have Motor City pickups in them. So step one, I replaced this bridge piece with the proper bridge piece, and the pickup went from being okay to being pretty crazy good. But that's not what's going on in that black Paul Reed Smith. Once I sort of started ordering this stuff, I realized, yeah, you can order these, but you can also order proper slugs. According to every source, the material is the same, so that part was easy. According to all the other sources, the screws are either 1010 or 1016 steel. Technically, they say it's 1014, but you can't get 1014, so that's the in-between. So there's 1015, 1016. And then the keeper bar, again, same argument. Some people say 1010, some people say 1014 steel. So I did a search and found that Philadelphia Luthiers had proper materials in terms of screws, slugs, keeper bars. And I was like, okay, let's order baggies of this stuff. And let's take this whole concept of we can get all the parts, and then let's go to the bin of broken old pickups and see what we have. So these are some coils I've collected over the years from dead pickups and from disassembled pickups. This is a rewind from Peter Leonard. So it's originally a T-top bobbin, but now it's rewound to 3.81. And you'll notice what I was saying earlier about the slugs. These are the genuine 70s era T-top slugs. And here's the reproduction. You'll notice the patina is different. and I don't have one out, and I should actually get a scale and measure them. But these ones are much lighter, so that means it's a different alloy than the golden 2015 or whatever the magic stuff is. It's on everyone's website. I can't remember right off the top of my head. But so there we go. So one of the first things I did was took a T-top like this, replaced the keeper bar with what I knew to be the right one, replaced the slugs, replaced the screws, put it all back together, put it in the guitar. I had a pickup of 7K, very even coils, and it sounded just like every AC/DC record or 70s era guy that you're a fan of, because it's a proper sounding T-top. So what I'm saying is, in the late 60s, when the pickups still sounded really good, probably what was happening was all of these materials, in spite of the winding changing, these materials were still, for the most part, in use as the right stuff. And then as these materials get swapped out for whatever they're buying cheaper, or whatever aspect of the formula is changing, then the pickups start changing sound. The coils are changing sound, and the way they're wound is being changed. But the really weird thing is, and this is the thing from you learn, is none of these coils were hand wound. All the Gibson coils were wound on either a Lisona or a Meteor winder. And the Meteor winder was in use as early as late 58, early 59. So this whole thing about hand-wound pickups and all that mojo stuff is largely horse manure. And I think what it comes down to, yeah, they didn't have counters, which is where these buckets come in. Basically, I sort of reproduced the Gibson process, which is I harvested a bunch of dead coils from a bunch of pickups, threw them in buckets, and started taking out my meter and measuring what we have. So what's this? This guy is 3.83, and this was originally an 18K PRS pickup. The bobbins are slightly taller, the slugs are slightly different, and I had a neighbor who was starting a pickup winding company. I'd hand these coils to him across the fence and say, try and mix them up and get different specs, but somewhere around 4K, and I'm going to put together a bunch of pickups and see what they sound like. Eventually, one of the things I discovered was, and this was the big learning curve, I took my Paul Reed Smith pickup that had died. The big discovery after all these pickup experiments was that the metals made more of a difference than the windings. Yes, there's some fun things to be had with weird offsets and weird mismatched coils, but the correct metals make it sing. This is an example of a pickup, probably in an upcoming video. We'll get our soldering iron out and lift the guts out of this pickup and reassemble it with the correct base plate, keeper bar, studs, slugs, screws. But you've already heard what that sounds like in that black PRS.